and get started. So, welcome everyone. I'm super excited to have Matt on our call, who always does our quarterly state of the market. If you haven't been on one of these before, Matt Becker is the broker for Magnolia Real Estate. He's super knowledgeable about real estate in general, but he's also really involved at all levels for uh, promoting real estate agents, home ownership, etc. So, anyways, he is going to be chatting today. My only request for you guys is if you're able to have your cameras on, if you can go ahead and turn those on, it just helps as we have a conversation. But Matt's going to go through where the market's at, any topics we should go over, and then we'll have plenty of time for questions, comments, etc. at the end. So, Matt, I'm going to pass it over to you. Oh,
Perfect.
wait, Casey, I'm sorry. I should have asked. Are you ready? Thank you. Sorry. All right, perfect. There you go, Matt.
All right, that sounds good. Well, thank you for having me on. As always, I appreciate doing this call. Since I started doing this call, I've been asked to do a whole lot more. So I don't know if you guys talk with amongst other people in the industry, but I appreciate it. I love talking to groups like this and kind of sharing what's going on in the market. Um, and it is it has been a market this year. We've been up, we've been down, we've been all over the place. We haven't seen normal trends continue like we have. We keep estimating when they're going to drop rates. We're finally seeing that happen a little bit, but it's just been kind of all over the board. And you know, everywhere I go, everybody always says, "Is it a seller's market? Is it a buyer's market?" I got a new term. It's a seller's friendly market. That's what I'm going with. So it's not a buyer's market, but it's not a true seller's market. It's still seller friendly, and that's what we're going to roll with going into the winter months. So, you know, starting off Q4, we are seeing strong numbers across the board in St. Louis. We've actually seen numbers in the city of St. Louis higher than we've seen in a long time. So if you are a city buyer, you have been seeing some good stuff over the past year. Numbers in the city are up quite a bit year over year, so that's a good thing. We love to see those numbers going up in the city and those values coming up. Numbers in St. Charles County still remaining high, still strong market out in St. Charles. But like we talked about in the last call, we are seeing a bit of a plateau on that $500,000 to $800,000 range. I think for the most part, what we're seeing is a lot of people are taking a hard look at what they're actually getting now for that $500,000 to $800,000 range, and so we are seeing a little bit of a plateau there. I think what we see more and more of is that people are just questioning what they're getting for $700,000 in St. Charles County. Same in St. Louis County. St. Louis County numbers look strong too. I think we're going to end somewhere about 5% up for the prices in our market as a whole. So from the city to the counties to the outlying areas, I think we're going to end up at about a 5% increase for this year on average sale prices. So I think that's going to be good. Our numbers look strong. We have a great market that we're in. We're in a very solid market. But one thing that I wanted to touch on that I think is interesting is I keep hearing people say, you know, well, we keep seeing price reductions, we keep seeing price drops, we keep seeing price drops. And yes, we are seeing price drops. And I think from what I have personally seen, those price drops are occurring when a home wasn't priced appropriately to begin with, when they were reaching for the stars on that sale price. Houses that are priced properly out the gate are still moving very, very quickly without a price reduction. But one thing that I thought was interesting is I was pulling stats last week and looking at them again this week, prepping for the call. And one of the stats that I was looking at was the close price to the original list price. Okay, so you listed it at 400 and you sold it at 400, right? And seeing kind of where that looks like. Well, close price to original price typically runs in our markets, St. Louis County, St. Charles County, right at 100% throughout the year. it's very, especially the past few years. We've been over that 100% during the busy months, and we're right at 100%. The only time you see that drop is when? When do we see the market kind of drop for us in this region? Anybody?
In the winter?
You got it. You got it. Christmas time, right? We tell people all the time, like, do not list your house the day before Christmas. It's not a great time. Wait until after the holidays. And that's about the only time when you look at stats for the last 5 years, right? Stats for the last 5 years, close price to original price drops below 100%. December, January, sometimes in November, sometimes in February, but it's typically right around that time. Otherwise, we're at 100% or over throughout the year, except this year. Guess what? September, we saw a drop. We saw a drop in close price to original price. Now, it was at 99.6% in St. Louis County and 99.5% in St. Charles County. But when you're talking about selling under that price value, making that number move in stats like this is hard. It's not like a huge fluctuation that you're looking for. So by seeing in the month of September that we dropped below 100%, when we never drop below 100% unless it's Christmas time, is a big deal. And so I think that shows it's a very, very good indicator that we're seeing those price adjustments. We're seeing those price modifications. And I think part of that goes to the fact that that people are getting nervous. And it's because they were used to selling for the last 3 to 5 years in 2 to 3 days. It is perfectly okay not to sell the house in 2 to 3 days. Anybody on this call who's been doing this for any amount of time will tell you that selling a house in 2 to 3 days, that wasn't normal, right? That was the out of the norm for us. And it was beautiful. We loved it. God, it made our jobs easy sometimes, but that wasn't the norm. So now when you look at days on market, median days on market in St. Charles for September, anybody want to take a guess what the median days on market was for St. Charles in September?
17.
17?
I was going to say 18.
29.
Okay.
29.
You guys you're across the river. You're in St. Louis County. So St. Louis County was 16 and St. Charles County was 11. Okay. So 2 weeks to sell a house. Oh my God. Right? So but I think that's what you're seeing is if it doesn't sell in the first 7 days, I know we're feeling it here at our office, is that if you don't sell it in the first week, the sellers are panicked. And no matter what level of expectation we've given them, it hasn't sold in a week, they're freaking out. Now, a lot of you on this call, you've sold a lot of houses. You're used to it. Sometimes takes 15 days, 30 days. You've got a price in mind and you're willing to wait it out. And so that's definitely something that I just want to drive that point home is that we're seeing it take a little bit longer to sell a house, and that's perfectly okay. But I do think that because those days on market are a little bit longer than what we've been used to the past couple of years, people are having a knee-jerk reaction and they're saying, drop the price. Let's reduce that price. And I really truly think that's what's led to showing that original price to close price differential in September, because people listed in the beginning of September or the end of August expecting a sale in 2 to 3 days, and it took them 2 weeks to sell it, or 3 weeks. And so they made that knee-jerk reaction to drop that price. The other thing with it is that we are seeing stuff overpriced. And if you're on this call, and I know you and I love you, if I see you list something and I think it's overpriced, you'll probably get a text message from me, and I'm going to say, you're about 20 grand too high, bring it down. And it's because you went out and you found one comp, that sold a year and a half ago that somewhat matched, and you're like, yeah, I got a comp, I'm going to sell it. It's probably not going to happen. And that's the thing, is that we got to be realistic with it. But that, again, you got to remember, if you're in that 500 to 800 price point, for some reason that people are taking a little bit longer look at those houses. They're being a little bit more critical of those homes, and they're really wanting to see, is this house really worth it? Some of the most popular subdivisions that we've been selling in over the past couple of years, where it was 24 hours and it was gone, you're listing at a good price in those subdivisions and people are still taking a second look at it and they're looking at the final product. If you want that top dollar on it, and this is, I say this all the time, it's got to have everything. It's got to have the granite or the quartz. It's got to have the backsplash. It's got to have the good paint. It's got to have the nice trim. It's got it. All of that stuff has to be there. It has to be a product. People are still willing to pay for it and they're willing to fight over it too, if it's what they want, if it checks all those boxes. So if you're flipping a house right now and you're like, man, should I or shouldn't I redo that one bathroom in the house that looks like it's kind of from 1995? The answer is yes, you should. You should go ahead and do it, or at least glaze the whole thing. I don't care what you do. Give it a fresh look. Because if they walk in and they feel like it's a little dated, they're not going to give you that top dollar. And it's going to sit and you're going to have people that come in under asking price. So making sure that you're looking at all those things. But I think that indicator that in the month of September, we didn't sell at 100% of original price to close price, I think is a big indicator of what we're going to feel this winter. I think you're going to see people making price reductions. You're going to see people getting nervous throughout the winter. But here's the good news, and this is my forecast for the spring. I think the spring is going to be phenomenal. Unless our entire country implodes over the winter, or our government never comes back to work, because apparently they can just take time off and they don't have to work. I think spring is going to pop. I think if you've got winter projects that you're working on, making sure that you have those things ready to go by early spring is going to be super important, because I think you're going to pull phenomenal numbers. I think we're going to see interest rates drop a little bit over the winter. I think we will probably, there's going to be some buyers that are qualifying in the high fives. And I think that 5 range is going to be super, super important. I think when people can think or feel that they're getting into the 5s, even if it's 5.99, God, they're excited about it, you know? And I know Sean Tyon's going to lock in some loans in the 5s next year. I can feel it. He's got it. So I think the spring is going to be, I think it's going to be very, very competitive again. I think it's going to be a very hot spring. I do feel like this winter is, we're going to just put on an extra layer. I think we're going to be a little chilly this winter. If you're looking to get a top dollar on a property and you don't have it listed, you know, at least a week before Thanksgiving, I think it's going to be chilly in December. That's just my prediction. I hope I'm completely wrong, but I think that's where we're at. I think people are going to enjoy the holidays, and we're gonna see that slow down like we always do. But I think we might feel it just a little bit more than normal. If you've got a project you're working on and you can get that thing listed prior to that Thanksgiving holiday or a couple weeks before, I think that's going to be a key time frame for you. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. And the other thing is you know, the days on market, I think we're going to probably hover. I think days on market through November and December, we're probably going to see those teens maybe hit the 20s. And it's not a bad thing. It's not a terrible thing. I know it sucks if you've got a product and you're trying to get rid of it. But I think that you're going to see probably in November, December, maybe even January, those days on market average is going to tick up. Median is going to be in the low 20s. So don't be afraid or don't freak out if you see that. Inventory numbers, inventory is ticking up. If things aren't selling faster, more stuff goes on the market. It's just what it is. We still have a low inventory number. St. Louis County is sitting just under 2.5. St. Charles County actually sitting a little bit over that. And we're right at about 3 months of inventory in St. Charles. I think one of the things that's adding to that is builders. There are several builders out there that have several display homes that are sitting because builders are asking for that top dollar on those things. And people are really taking a hard look at, do I want to pay $500,000 for a 1,700 square foot ranch? You know, and it's pretty, it's beautiful, but at the end of the day, you know, are they willing to pay that for that new construction? And I do think that's a great thing for us, for this group, because a lot of the products that you guys put out feel and look like new construction. You know, you're basically taking this shell of a house and turning it into new construction on the inside. And people love that. People really like that idea and that opportunity. And so if they're looking at spending $500,000 for a brand new construction, or they're going to spend $400,000 on your rehab, they're probably going to roll with the 400,000 if it matches their needs. So definitely something to keep in mind there. But all in all, I think that numbers are holding steady. I love where the numbers are sitting for our average sales price, and that continues to go up. We continue to see those numbers rise. And again, we were hoping for a 1 to 2% this year. So if we can end the year at 3 to 5, even maybe 6 in some areas, I think that's going to be a huge win for our St. Louis market. Condos still suck. God, please, 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 if you're going to buy a condo to renovate or flip, make sure you do your homework on the HOA. Make sure you understand who can buy that. We got lots of them sitting out there that can only accept a cash offer, and the numbers don't make sense for the investors. When the HOA fee is $500 a month, and you want to use it as a rental or an investment, a lot of times it doesn't work. So if you're buying a townhouse or a condo to flip, just please make sure that it can be financed. Make sure the HOA is in good shape. Make sure that you're not going to get hit with a $20,000 special assessment while you're holding that property. That's one of the biggest things that's out there. So those are still tough. And ground is still worth a fortune. So if you've got the opportunity to pick up something that could potentially be a bulldoze and sell the lot, if you can pick up any acreage that's out there, it's still crazy. We've got there's property north of Troy that's selling for 25,000 an acre. So we're seeing numbers across the board on raw ground look really, really good. So if you've got that opportunity, if you come across an investment opportunity and it's a tear down or it's a piece of crap, but it's sitting on ground, make sure you're connecting with a realtor and run those numbers and know what that price per acre is going to be. Because if you can pick up a house that you can tear down for $25,000, but you're sitting on 5 acres, I think that's a really good thing. Nathan, you got a question?
Sorry, yeah. Two-part question here. On residential ground, like let's say somebody was going to build a multifamily, what are you seeing in St. Charles and in St. Louis as the dollar per square foot for the zoned opportunity, already existing zoned opportunity for residential?
Yeah. So are you talking like you're talking about for just the raw ground?
Right. If I just had if I just had a pad and I'm looking at purchasing it with the intent of building a multifamily unit on it, what is the multifamily zonable, like the existing zonable square feet? What is that price in St. Louis versus St. Charles? Nothing
It's
else
all
on
over the board. It is literally all over the board right now. And here's what we're seeing. I'm seeing an influx when it comes to multifamily. I'm seeing an influx of multifamily units going on the market and people trying to offload them right now. Over the past 5 years, people have overpaid for that ground. They've overpaid for the complexes and the units that are existing, and they're not cash flowing the way they want.
Right.
They're a lot of it comes back to too is that their 3 and 5 year notes are now having to be refinanced because that balloon is up, and what they had it for at 4% is now at 8%. And
Right.
so, so for the raw ground aspect of it, I think it's all over the board. A lot of it's going to depend on where that ground sits. I mean, if you've got a piece of ground in Kirkwood that you can, bulldoze a house and put up multifamily on, that's gonna have a way different price per square foot than if you've got a lot out in Winsville,
Of course.
So it's kind of all over the board there. But I would say on the multifamily side of things, if you're looking for multifamily, you need to be ready to pounce over the next 12 months.
Right.
People way overpaid. People are going to be upside down on these when they have to refinance those notes, but they got that higher interest rate and it's not going to cash flow like they want. It's going to be definitely something to watch because there's going to be deals to be had when they get ready to either foreclose or lose those. And so the multifamily scheme of things right now is going to be interesting to watch over the next year.
And then I had a second question.
Yeah.
And I understand that the various areas have obviously different square footage, but I'll just make the comment that, if you're looking at Kirkwood or other Ladue, it doesn't matter. In the past, what I've noticed is St. Louis, just the vacant lots, there's very limited data for smaller communities that didn't have something already existing on them. And I've just seen some wild like numbers in terms of what people are willing to pay for a tear down when the house is not viable. But so any info you have, like data on that, I'd
Yeah,
welcome it.
yeah,
The other
absolutely. And I can go out and see what I can pull, and I follow back up with you on that.
That'd be great. Thanks.
Yeah,
I'll drop my phone number into the message.
yeah.
Um, the second question I have is, what are you seeing new construction per square foot on multifamily at right now? And then new construction versus say rehab per square foot on also say a multifamily or residential.
Yeah, I don't have numbers in front of me, but I would have to guess part of what we've seen on the multifamily with rehab cost is that a lot of these multifamilies that are out there are in pretty rough shape. And so, when you're trying to compare renovating one versus buying, building one, we're seeing numbers coming in, pretty similar. I have a client right now that they have been dying to buy an apartment complex for the last 2 years. They've been smart. They haven't overpaid. They haven't gotten in the position where some of these people are in, and they've been waiting. We looked at one 2 weeks ago, and they haven't priced out what it would cost to build one, because they can't find ground cheap enough to put it on, that would make sense. But the renovation costs, I think it was an 18 unit complex. This thing hasn't been touched in 15 years. They were looking at having to sink probably 2.5 million into renovating the entire thing. Every single unit, every single system had to be touched. And unfortunately, we're seeing more and more of that with some of the multifamily. So that's kind of where that falls.
Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. But yeah, so definitely on the line of multifamily, definitely keep your eyes open. I think that there's especially some of the smaller apartment complexes, that kind of stuff. I think that those have been picked up over the past few years, overpaid, notes are coming due, refinancing, all the good stuff. So keep your eyes out. I think you're going to see more and more of those get listed. And the other thing is too, is you're going to see them get listed for a ridiculous amount of money. Don't be scared to make offers on those. I know this group, you're not scared to make an offer and be told no. But just, put that offer out there, because you'll be amazed at how many times you put that out there, and 6 months later, 3 months later, they come back because it hasn't moved and they need to get rid of it. So put it on paper and put it in front of somebody, let them be an option. So yeah, so overall, I think we're in a good position. I think, coming in, strong into next year is going to be good, but I do think it's going to be a cold winter. And going from there. Merle, do you have a question?
First, I have a comment. I do agree with your analysis, and you did a fantastic job. And I think you're going to agree with this, but you didn't mention it. As we move into the spring, to further strengthen the market, we had a whole bunch of people with 3%, just pick that number, mortgages, and two things occur. As people can only wait so long to move up or move down or move to Florida or whatever, so they'll kick the can down the road, but the can's pretty well landed, and there's some people have to make a move, and combined with that, they feel even better as the rates soften. So that also emboldens the spring market.
Yeah, no, I agree. And again, I think that's where if we can get anything with a 5 in it for interest rates, if people are sitting on a 3 or 4, they just feel better about it, if they're gonna make that move. And you're absolutely right, Merle. We've got so many people that are sitting on 2.5% to 4% interest rates, and they don't want to move, but at the same time, you can only sit for so long. You can, there's people, they're having more kids, their lifestyles are changing, whatever the case may be. You can only hang out in that one house for so long.
In the history of America, we never had anything near a 5 million home shortage, and it didn't go away yesterday. So it could be 4.2, but there's a lot of deferred demand. So the other question, I want to go back to condo. I was talking to my insurance agent, and I'm also listing a villa where the villa they are going to get individual homeowners insurance and not have a master policy. And I haven't done any comparisons on how, but apparently it turns out better. When you go into condos, what my insurance agent said is if, like in my Deerfield, I have a basement, I have a main floor, and I have an upstairs. You can do individual policy. But if you do a condo where you're on the main floor, somebody's living above you and somebody's living above them, the state of Missouri says that there has to be a master policy because one can affect the other more so on a fire or flood or whatever.
Yeah, you're absolutely
Anyway,
correct.
I don't know how the individual policies, if a lot of them are going to that, but I'll put it on.
You bring up a great point. So on the villas, yes. If you're seeing the attached villas, they're side by side, I think that eventually you're going to see 90% of them go to individual policies. The numbers make better sense for the owners, for the HOAs, for everybody involved if it goes to individual policies. But if they're stacked on top of each other, if they're apartment style, condos, then yes, there has to be a master insurance policy in place. We actually brought in Missouri's director of finance into one of our meetings a couple months ago for Missouri realtors. And they sat side by side with NAR's insurance person, national insurance, and to listen to them talk you just want to bang your head against the wall because you've got at different levels, you've got different rules, you've got different things they got to follow. And so the state of Missouri says one thing, but national says another. And also the fact that Missouri doesn't have a statewide building code, that makes our insurance premiums higher. It makes our insurance a little bit more difficult because we don't have a statewide code. Codes are muni by muni, county by county. So a statewide code would help a little bit on that insurance piece of it. So, but yeah, great points. And I do think especially the standalone villas and the 3 and 4-plex villa units that are just attached to the wall, have attached walls. I do think that the majority of those are probably going to end up over the next year to 3 years going to individual owned policies where there's not a master policy for those, which is I think it's a better thing for everybody. So hard part with those is if they have a shared roof line, and there has to be a roof replacement. If each unit has an individual insurance policy and unit A says we're not replacing your roof, but unit B says we are, and you've got a shared roof line, now it looks all goofy. So there's some townhouse or some villas off of Mexico Road and Dupree that are like that. And when you drive through, one's got one roof, one's got another roof, but they're attached, and it's like that looks weird. So that's about the only issue we see there. So the other thing that I think is on the horizon, I know it's on the horizon, it's going into effect in March, is the new requirements for closing of cash deals if you are an LLC and a corporation or a trust. So this wonderful financial crimes enforcement network, you've all heard of them probably, called FinCEN. FinCEN has a new title requirement where if a deal is being purchased with cash or through a lender that does not have an NMLS number, then it will trigger a FinCEN investigation. And this is going to be required. I think it's a 4-page application by the seller and an 8 or 9-page application by the buyer. The title companies are required to collect this information and submit it to the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. It only applies if it is a cash deal and the buyer is an LLC or a trust or a corporation. It does not apply if Merle Schneider wants to go out and buy a house as an individual and pay cash for it, totally fine. But if Merle Schneider says, I'm going to buy cash for it, and he tells his title company, we're going to quit claim this into my LLC in the next 30 days, it triggers the FinCEN requirement. So you need to have this on your radar. Your title companies are working diligently to make sure they are ready for this change. It was supposed to go into effect December 1st. It has now been pushed to March 1st of next year. And what it is intended to do is make sure that people aren't laundering money or using drug money to buy and sell real estate. And it is a cost that will be on the buyer side, but it is going to be something that takes a bit of time. So if you are planning to buy a house for cash and close in 10 days using an LLC, come March 1st, that's not going to probably happen. It is probably going to be a 2 to 3 week period for them to get this paperwork processed. And you will not be able to find a title company to let you skate by without submitting this paperwork, because there is huge financial fines for the title company, and there is criminal penalties for the closer. So you are not going to be able to find a title company that says, oh, we'll let this one by, because there is no closer that's going to go to jail for any of you. So most title companies are having to hire additional people. That's where the additional cost is coming from, and that's why they have pushed this off until March 1st. So we've got copies of the draft of the applications, and we'll share those with people as we get further down the road. Your title companies are aware of this. They know what's going on. But it's going to go for private money too. So if I'm lending you $100,000 so you can go buy a property, that's going to trigger a FinCEN investigation. And when I say investigation, it'll trigger the application gets sent off to the federal government, and that's the piece that we don't know how long it's going to take. Because we all know when you throw the government into something, there's no telling how long that could take. So we're hoping that it would only delay the process by a week or two, but we don't know. And if you are buying a property as an individual and decide you're going to put that in an LLC before closing, and you amend the contract, that will trigger it, and they'll have to start all over with the FinCEN stuff. So it ought to be really, really interesting. Suzanne, you got something? You look like you really want to talk.
Yeah, I have a question. So
Yeah.
hard money, we don't have an NMLS number, so this applies to everyone
Yep.
buying in an LLC.
Yep.
Does it get easier? Like, so we have a lot of repeat clients, if, let's say 123 LLC keeps buying and closing with the same title company every time, do they have to fill out a new application?
Yeah.
Because it's per
You have
property?
to fill out a new application. We've been told that the title companies will not be able to keep an application on file, that it will have to be a fresh document that's filled out every single time. So that part of it, I mean, yes, it's intense, and it's a lot of questions, and it's a lot of stuff. Like some of the questions that I've looked at on there, I think some of our LLCs are going to look at this and say, I don't know the answer to that, and that might be that there is no answer to that question, that you have to put in A. But yeah, they'll have to fill it out every single time.
How
I'm
hard is
also
it to get?
thinking,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Suzanne.
I'm thinking about how this disrupts the wholesaling market too, because we have so many people who the wholesaler gets it under contract for 30 days, but doesn't get anyone in till 2 weeks in,
Yeah.
and then they sell it to someone.
Well, and here's the other thing too, is that so in the realtor board forms, the realtor contracts that we use, our contract is changing January 1 to include language that says the buyer and seller agree to cooperate to complete the FinCEN requirements. On the wholesale side of things, that's going to be a whole nother conversation you guys are going to have with a seller, is that, hey, I'm buying your house in cash. The title company is going to require you to fill out this document. It's not going to be a cost for the seller. The cost for the FinCEN stuff is going to be applied to the buyer side, but it is going to be something that, you guys, I mean, we all know what it's like to work with somebody that doesn't really want to cooperate. So if we tell them they have to fill out a 4-page document to sell their house, and it's going to the federal government, people might freak. So there's definitely going to be some hurdles with it for sure, especially on the wholesale side of things. Yeah, and the other, and mentioning wholesale, that does lead us into kind of my other topic that I had listed here is the issue of wholesaling, the legitimacy of wholesaling is being questioned by the state legislature. From what I know, there's going to be probably anywhere between 5 to 8 to 10 bills that are proposed in the next session, which will start in January, that would be everything from outlawing wholesale in the state of Missouri to requiring a disclosure to, there's all kinds of different things that are out there. We're working very closely with a lot of the legislators that are proposing this. I have become a number on speed dial for most of Jeff City on this topic, just because they know that Faster House is in my building. And so when they've got questions, they come to me and they say, Matt, what should we do? And a lot of them look like I did when I met Brian Schroeder. When I met Brian and Brian told me what they did and how they did it, I was like, huh? I was like, that doesn't make any sense from a traditional real estate side. So definitely a lot to watch. We are a huge, Magnolia Real Estate and myself and with everybody in our network, we're a huge proponent of wholesaling and that ability that we have. So you can bet that I'll be doing everything in my power to make sure that whatever happens, whatever transpires in Jeff City next year positively affects you guys. There is one of the proposals that's out there that I've heard about is talking about requiring a disclosure. Anybody that wants to do a wholesale would have to submit a disclosure to the seller. That would be kind of a part of your contract that would basically outline some of the benchmarks that wholesaler has to meet to protect the consumer. That's what this is all about. And so to me, that's not the end of the world on an aspect like that. And for the people on this call that are amazing wholesalers and do right by the people they work with, I think it would actually help your business. I think it would probably root out some of the problems that we see out there that you guys see in the industry. So lots of stuff to watch as we start the year, and hopefully Suzanne and Casey continue to want me to come on this call quarterly, and I can update you guys as that transpires and moves down the road. But it'll be some interesting conversations next year in Jeff City on wholesaling and the future of wholesaling. So should be exciting conversations, but we'll keep you all posted on that. So outside of that, never a dull moment in what we do. If there's something, if you guys have individual questions or anything, you guys can always reach out to me. I love these calls because after I do them, I normally hear from at least a couple of you asking different questions. So my phone's always on, so I'm always happy to answer questions. And if you got questions now, I'm happy to answer those or talk about anything you guys want.
Matt, I got a couple of questions for you.
Yeah, go Scott.
First of all, thanks for that crappy couple of updates. That's very depressing and going to hurt my business.
Sure.
But
I'm here to
question
help.
for you. So if I am finishing up 2 rehabs around, my guess is December 15th, when would the wisest time be to list those?
January 1.
You think January 1?
Honestly, can you sell a house over Christmas? Absolutely you can. I just, I think that the momentum and the buzz that you want to generate around a new listing just doesn't happen between December 15th and December 31st. Now you've got a 21-day window in Maris to have it coming soon. So I don't think there's anything wrong with generating that buzz around a coming soon listing. And if you wanted to put it coming soon, you're not adding days on market. So if you're going to be done around December 15th and you wanted the realtor to list it on, December 20th is coming soon with an active date of January 2nd, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And who knows, maybe you generate enough buzz that you get a sight unseen offer.
And it wouldn't be wise to wait longer because you mentioned the spring is going to be hopping.
Spring's going to be hopping. I think it depends on what your holding cost is. If you've got the ability to sit on that until maybe the beginning of February or mid-February, I think I think you're going to see the spring market heat up well before spring actually get here. So I think typically when we roll out of January, once we get past those holidays, people are ready to start moving. They're ready to start looking. And so I think that if you get past, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, people get back into their normal routines and schedules. They're ready. They're out there looking. So you may have more people pulling the trigger in February, March, and April, but I think you still stand a really good shot to get rid of it for a good price in January.
And when does the spring season technically start? Like, what's your date where you're like, guys, get all the listings up now?
Typically, I tell you like March 1st, like you be listed by March 1st. That's when it really starts to heat up. And it's really when you start to see those numbers start to change for days on market. You start to see those numbers change when it comes to the closed price to original price ratios. Your all of that starts to tick up. But at the same time, I have a lot of people that try to wait till like April or May, but typically inventory is very low over December and January. So if you wait until everybody lists it in April or May, then you're missing some of those people, you're missing a little bit of that supply and demand. So going on in February, beginning of March is good.
Great. Thanks.
Yep.
I remember,
Oh, go ahead, John.
I remember on Y2K, January 1, I sold a new construction that I expected I was building. So it does happen.
Oh yeah, it does. I've sold houses the week of Christmas. We talk about that supply and demand though, and when that demand is at its highest, and that's what drives a lot of those offers. And so, I closed the house for a client 2 days before Christmas one year, and we got done. And he said, "Well, I'll never sell another house between Thanksgiving and Christmas again because it was so slow. We sold it, we got an offer, but it just wasn't that hype, it wasn't that drive because people were just taking the holidays off."
I put one up for sale in August and we had nothing but crickets. It was in Overland.
Yeah.
And but I was watching everybody else in the market and everybody was dropping it after 7, 14, 21 days, whatever. I just sat tight and thought, why not let the buyers determine where it needs to go?
Yep.
And it paid off.
Yep. Absolutely. And that's the thing. If you're looking at the comps, you're looking at the neighborhoods and you're priced where you're supposed to be, that's what you got to be patient. Someone will buy it. It's just you got to be patient for it. That's for sure. Good for you.
Yeah, my question is kind of around those lines as we think about going into winter and pricing things right. There's a lot of comps that sold spring, summertime, early summer that sold over list. And we have clients that are coming to us and using that one example of this one sold 30 or 40 grand over ask.
Mhm.
When you're thinking about listing price and ARVs and running numbers for winter listings, would you focus more on list price, sale price, or time of year that the sale occurred?
Yeah, so I don't look at the sold prices very often. I look at what it was listed for, and see where it went from there. I think the list price is one of the most important, and you got to remember those benchmarks. Typically $25,000 increments are your benchmark. So, a prime example, we have an agent here who's also an investor, always turns out an amazing product. I love his flips. And he listed one in North O'Fallon, and it had a shitty driveway. It had a driveway that was straight up. I mean, it was nothing you can do about that, right? As an investor, the end product, the house itself was phenomenal. The driveway was crap. And because of it, they couldn't move this house. And they priced it pretty high. It was at a price that the house without that driveway would have sold in a heartbeat, but the driveway deterred everybody. And so they kept dropping the price, here and there, little increments. And I finally I sat him down and we had a conversation, and I said, here's the deal. I said, you have to get below a benchmark. You have to create that frenzy if you stand to make any money at all. And I said, so they originally listed it at 345, and we were down to like 320, 325. And I said, I'm going to tell you to do something that you're going to hate to hear, but I promise you it'll work out. I said, you've got to drop the price to 299.9. And he was like, oh my God, I don't know if we can do that. Like, that's insane. I said, you will generate multiple offers and you will close well above your 299 mark. But I said, you have to create that frenzy. So he trusted me, he did it, and I'm fairly certain they're going to close, or they have closed at 325. So they got $25,000 over asking price once they went down to that 299 number. So they got what they wanted. And so that those benchmarks are huge, because if you're sitting at, 317.5, there's not too many people out there looking at 320 and under. You've got some that are probably looking at 325 and under, but otherwise they're looking at 299 and under, or they're looking at 300 and under, and they're willing to pay over 300, but these buyers have been trained over the last 5 years that if you want that property, you're going to have to go over asking price to get it. So they say, okay, cool. Well, we could go up to 325, but we don't want to look over 300 because they think they're going to have to offer 325. So don't be scared to put that price and make it competitive to drive that offer. I've got one this week. We started at 650. We're in that weird price point, and I think we're going to have to drop it to the 599 mark to generate that buzz. And so that's what we're going to try to do. Any other questions, comments, concerns?
Did you sell your $2 million property?
Yes, we did. We closed.
Nice.
We closed for. We listed at 1.9 and closed at 1.8, as is sale cash. So,
Congratulations, my man.
thank you.
You mentioned that there's a little bit of slowdown in the 500 or 400 $800,000 price range. I think you said something like that. 500. Do you think there's anything? Are builders doing incentives in that price range, and you think their competition is affecting things, or do you think there's an oversupply in that area, or what are your thoughts on that?
No, I don't think there's oversupply. I think people are just pickier when it comes to that price point. Yeah, builders are starting to offer incentives. We're seeing, the free luxury kitchen come back. We're seeing the, we'll buy down your rates. We're offering a, $10,000 credit. A lot of the builders have partnerships with their in-house lenders, so they're able to offer some offsets there. So we're seeing that. But I also see, builder inventory is selling. It's just selling slower. And I think I just truly think people are taking more time to decide what they're going to spend. Because, if you're at a 6%, 6.5% interest rate on, a $500,000 house because you need 4 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms, that's a hefty monthly payment, especially for a family. So I think that they are looking at it as, especially when it comes to if that house needs updating, because they might be able to afford the down payment and the house payment, but then they also drop $25,000 to remodel that kitchen or bathroom, that needs to be done. So I think that I really think that's part of it, because if we're seeing those price points are still flying off the shelf if everything in it is done. If the kitchens are good, the bathrooms are good, the exterior is good. If that family or if that person or that buyer has to drop any amount of money, decent amount of money, to bring that house up to where it should be, they're going to pass every time.
I feel like you're saying something kind of anti what I feel like a lot of rehabbers are doing right now. And what I've been hearing a lot of rehabbers saying, they're not doing quite as much as they did a year ago, as far as not quite as nice upgrades or finishing that basement, or I don't know, just doing that extra thing that they could get their money back on a year ago. They're kind of cutting back on some of those things. Are you saying that would you recommend against doing that and try to keep doing them really nice versus cutting back, just, cutting a few corners here and there?
Yeah, at the end of the day, it depends on what your spread is, and it depends on what you want to list it for. If you're going to list at the top of the market and you want to try to bring that higher price, you can't cut that corner. I can't tell you how many times I hear it. It's always that second bathroom or that master bathroom that the rehabber left the original tile, or they left the original toilet and tub, and they didn't glaze it. They just, it's clean. Don't get me wrong. It's clean, and you could use it that way for another 10 years, but it doesn't look like 2025. It looks like 2000 or 1995. And so they, people, so the first question they look at me as their realtor and they say, Matt, how much would it cost to redo this bathroom?
Mhm.
Well, hell, I don't know. You know, if you want a gold plated toilet, it could cost you 50 grand, but you know, you might be able to do it for 20. If they
So
got to drop 10 or 20 grand to do a bathroom or a kitchen, you know, and 20 grand on a bathroom is really high. You know, 10
yeah.
grand on the bathroom though, if you're going to tile it and do everything, you know, it's not out of the question. So I think that's what a lot of it boils down to. So I think
In
that,
your opinion, I think a lot of investors are doing that cut the corner thing right now. In your opinion, are they losing money by doing that?
so I think they are. I think they are, you know, especially when they're cutting the corner on, you know, some of the systems in the house too. Again, we're talking about the high ticket items. If it's literally a matter of adding a backsplash versus not adding a backsplash, that we can take or leave that. But if
Okay.
someone's looking at that large expense to redo a bathroom, large expense to redo a kitchen, or they know that the HVAC system is 35 years old, there's probably a good chance that's part of the discussion of why they're not offering on that house, is that, you know, they don't want to do it. So, and granted, take my buyer hat off, put my seller hat on. I can sell a house with a 35-year-old HVAC system. We'll throw in a home warranty for $600 and call it done. Most of the time we can get that across the finish line, but you've got a lot of people that passed on writing that initial offer because of the age of the systems.
Gotcha. Hey, I got one more thing. So
Yeah.
for those, this is kind of a, I don't know, a to the group thing. So you probably don't know this, but Rachel and some of the other people on the team get a bonus based on how many people show up with their camera on every week. And we need 5 more people on today. So 5 people that don't have your camera on. Can you turn your camera on just for a few minutes? There you go. We need 3 more. 3 more to
Should
help
we
Rachel
turn
out.
our camera off if we don't want Rachel to get the bonus?
Hey, Scotty.
Welcome.
Oh,
One more.
that's
We're so
awesome.
close. There we go.
Oh, look at that. Look at all
Over the
those
top
good,
for today, anyway.
we got some good
Thank you,
looking people
guys.
on here.
Hey, Matt, I got another question. Going back to what Nathan was talking to you about,
Yeah.
as far as multifamily and that, do you see it that the cities are objecting to taking a single family and rezoning it to a multifamily to put a duplex or a 3 or a 4 unit on there, that single family?
No, and most of the time, it depends on the municipality. You know, some are, I feel bad for the municipalities right now because they're taking a lot of heat on anything that's you put the word multi in front of anything and they're taking heat because as soon as people hear the word multifamily, they're thinking about a 800 unit apartment complex going in their backyard. And so a lot of it boils down to what's the pushback going to be from their contingency, from their constituents in that area. So if for some reason, you know, they know they're going to be, you want to put that in an area where there's going to be a ton of pushback from that subdivision of those neighbors, they're going to be a little bit less likely to roll with it. But I think as long as as long as they know that they're not in for an uphill fight with any of the neighbors on it, I think most of them are pretty okay with it. So, and we've seen those zoning requests go through. And we're also, one thing we've been trying to do with a lot of municipalities is trying to figure out an easier and quicker and simpler way that we can get those rezoning restrictions done on different things like that, because we've got a lot of units that are wanting to go from multifamily into single family, or we want to go from single family to multifamily. So hopefully we can make some headway with some of these municipalities over the next year to make that process a little bit easier.
Hey, Matt.
Yeah.
Couple of comments. Good job. One, we are in the 5s on interest rates on primary residence. Okay. So just making sure everybody, I know there's a lot of investors on here. So putting down, obviously good credit, putting money down, you know, the key that I have heard, you know, and hopefully we get there in the spring is the 5.5% range. That's the number that the economists have said, or the polls have said, that's when people will give up their 3% rate. But of course, as you indicated, I mean, I've got people already doing it. You know, they're selling, they need a bigger house, they need a different location. You know, when push comes to shove, they just got to move. The other thing that I want to comment on is about condos. Man, you talk to the underwriters, you mentioned condos and to an underwriter, it is the dreaded C word. Do
Yeah.
not bring it up. If they get a file with a condo on it, oh my gosh, you think an explosion just went off. I mean, I would just tell people, first off, townhomes and villas are fine. Condos are not. You know, if you're going to buy one, buy at your own risk. Check out all those things: insurance, reserves, lawsuits. You know, and it could be a condo. I always tell people, make sure it's FHA approved. That doesn't, even if you're not going FHA, that's the first thing we want to look at. Is it FHA approved? Because if they got through FHA standards, then they're probably golden. But that doesn't mean that they'll be FHA approved forever. So if you're going to buy one, just buy at your own risk. And if you can do it on the long term, then great. But if you think you're going to try to get rid of it in a few years, then, you know, you might be dealing trying to find just a cash buyer.
Yeah. Travis, you got a question?
Yeah, I had a question a little bit geared toward the wholesale side. You talked about kind of regulations coming down. Is there anything that wholesalers should be doing to prepare for that? I've heard some people talk about getting a license. If you know if that ends up being a requirement, putting a stop to memorandums, anything like that. Is there anything that we should be looking out for?
No, I think the biggest thing is, I think the reason why this is a discussion is because I know a lot of you on this call know wholesalers aren't created equally. And a lot of the complaints that come into the Attorney General's office come through because of wholesale practices. And so I think that's what's driving a lot of this. And so that being said, I think the best thing that we can do is continue to do what you're already doing. You know, be legit, you know, have your ducks in a row, know what you're doing, explain those contracts to the people you're talking to, making sure that you're, you know, doing everything to the best of your ability to make sure that you're protected and the seller, you know, has their protections and they know exactly what the process looks like. If everybody did it that way, I don't think anybody would be questioning it. So I think just keeping that high level of integrity that I know everybody on this call has is huge. And that's what'll help us out more than anything when we go to fight this stuff, is because we need those positive and good reviews that people have said, look, this, you know, Travis bought my house and he got me out of a situation that I didn't want to be in, and it was simple, it was easy, and it was painless, and he did what he said he was going to do. That's what it boils down to, is you follow through on what your original promises are. And I think that's the best way that you guys can help me and help us, you know, combat what we're going to be up against next year. So, you know, just keep doing what you do and keep that high level of integrity out there. And again, as things change, as things, you know, rumble through the industry, I'll make sure to keep you all in the loop. And if there's going to be a major law change or shift or something, you guys will be the first to know.
What was the outcome, or is there an outcome on the subdivision saying no for sale signs or open house signs? Are you familiar with that?
So Wentzville was trying to outlaw open house signs. They were trying to outlaw directional arrows. They were trying to outlaw your guys' signs that say I buy houses for cash. Right now, the city ordinance says signs can go out Friday after 5 and they have to be picked up by Monday before 8 a.m. We showed up in force. We got them to change their minds on that. So they are strengthening their ordinance. They're not getting rid of it. We're gonna work with the city of Wentzville on that to make sure that can continue. So.
Thanks, Matt. We are at noon, so we are at 1. So we are gonna go ahead.
I'm gonna make a quick comment because Brian donated the use of that unit that you're in right now, and it went to RPAC, which is Realtor Political Action, and exactly what Matt just described. So Brian basically contributed to that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Merlin. So did you, because you overpaid for it, which I appreciate.
Now you got to find that snake in there that I left, the plastic snake, because your wife's gonna scream at some point.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
All right, Casey, you want to wrap us up?
Yeah, thanks everybody. Thanks for Matt for jumping on the call. Like always, you're super informational, providing us a lot of value. Thank you to some of our vendors who were on the call today. Sean Tyan, if you need mortgage, anything like that, call Sean. I'm trying to think of who else was on the call that I saw.
Justin Dossie was on.
Justin Dossie with Ballpoint Marketing. You want to step up your marketing game, direct to seller stuff, give him a shout. But thanks everybody for coming on the call today and for attending the club last week. It was awesome. Keep an eye out for some more information on the club and those nominations for those awards. We want to get a bunch of nominations in, so keep an eye out on the Buyers Club group. We'll be posting more soon. So until next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys. Thank you for having me.
Bye.